everybody. My name is AJ Nidek. I'm one of the sales leaders here at the TUTCO Heating Solutions Group. We're doing something a little different. You can obviously see our Brady Bunch style squares we have going here. We're discussing how a customer potentially could go from a standard control panel to a custom. A lot of times people hear custom and they think expensive. Doesn't have to be. It can be for sure, but it doesn't have to be. People think an incredibly long lead time. It can be, doesn't really have to be. It's really about coming up with the best solution for your specific application. And as Farnam Custom Products, that's what we do with our heater, so it makes sense. That's what we do with our control panels. Guys, you want to introduce yourself, please? Logan?
Yeah, so my name's Logan Hedrick. I'm the principal engineer here at Farnam.
And I'm Sean Gibbs. I'm the business leader and engineering manager here at Farnam.
Fantastic. So a lot of times we'll have a customer come to us who has that control panel need, and either they don't know what they want the panel to do, and we can walk them through that absolutely, or they know exactly what they want it to do, and one of our standards won't cover it. As an example, guys, you might want to control a valve opening and closing. You might want to control a blower. What other types of processes might you want to add into the control panel aside from your set point and your high limit for the heater?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times customers come to us and they think they know what they want, and they do, but I think they talk to us a lot of times, and through our process of asking questions and things that we have to know to design and manufacture the panels, we a lot of times we end up coming up with a lot of different things about the customer's applications that we can actually help with inside the control panel that maybe they weren't even necessarily accounting for, even if they wanted something custom or knew exactly what they wanted, just through the process of asking questions. So, what are some things that we can control? So obviously heaters, we're a heater manufacturer. That's what we do. We have extensive expertise in controlling heaters. We can do PID, on-off control, that kind of thing as far as controlling the heater. But so we also do motion controls. We can do linear actuators, motors, blowers. We have a good bit of experience with VFDs, that's variable frequency drives. So anytime you control a motor or a blower, you need some way to control it to control the speed. And so that's where variable frequency drives tend to come in. There's a good bit of programming involved with that, and that's all stuff that we can handle and guide on in-house here. We also do programmable logic controllers, or PLCs for short. The benefit of using a PLC and a panel is you can pretty much control anything you want, and you have the ability to change and custom tailor make programs specific to the customer's application. And so some other things, lighting. Do you have lighting around your assembly line that you need? We can do it.
Like a safety light, Logan, correct?
Yes, so safety lights, light curtains, stack lights, alarms. We can do all that stuff. You just need a relay output. Sure, we got you. Really anything, if it's electrical and it's related to the heater or the assembly line or whatever it is that you are trying to control, if it's around there and it needs a set of wires to it, there's more than likely we can integrate the solution with our panel.
Sean, anything you'd want to add to that?
No, I think Logan did a very good job of covering things. The only things that I would add is, it could be as simple as building ingress and egress. We can do something like that. Solenoid valves or whatnot. And then there's a multitude of sensor inputs and things that I know that we can pretty much address any kind of customer need.
And to be
And
clear,
it could be something, well, to even go a little step farther, it could be multiple things at once, right? So I think that when we talk about standard control panels, we're really talking about a single heater control, but we can do multiple zones. We can do stacked starts. We can do slow starts. We can do whatever you need, timers. So,
The two things I would add to that, guys, would be we're not expecting the customer to say, hey, I need this, that's, and that does this. We just need to know what you want to control. We'll handle the rest. If you have particular
exactly.
brands that you would prefer us to use, we can absolutely support that, but we're not expecting that. And you brought up multi-loop panels, Sean. I think one of the misconceptions is that every time you want a 4-loop panel, that's 4 times the cost of one panel. And that's exactly, Logan, that's clearly not the case, because once you have the back panel, the actual enclosure, if you will, as you're adding stuff in there, it's not going to go up in cost the same amount for every single loop. Did you guys want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I think as far as multi-loop panels, whether it's heater loops or really any multi-loop, honestly, even if it's not for a heater load, um, you kind of have a fixed upfront cost, you could say, where you've got your panel, you've got your controller, you've got your base components that you're going to pay for regardless of whether it's one loop or 20 loops. And you have that fixed cost and there's nothing, you're paying for it regardless. But once you get those core components in there, the cost to add a loop is typically not that expensive. Now it varies depending on the load and the amperage specifically, but in comparison with the overall price of the panel, the cost to add an additional loop is not that intensive.
What types of communication protocols do you guys see us normally working with?
I mean, we can work with all communication protocols, but I would say probably some of the most common would be Ethernet IP or EIP for short. Profinet if you're running with Siemens controllers. So Ethernet IP would be an Allen Bradley specific protocol, or at least native to Allen Bradley, I should say, not specific, but Profinet would be your common Siemens communication. And then probably the biggest one we deal with would be Modbus, and we do Modbus via serial or Ethernet, so TCP or RTU.
Anything you'd like to add,
Yeah.
Sean?
Well, and also we could potentially do BACnet, which is building automation controls as well, uh, in addition to those things. So,
Those are the protocols that we deal with, but so there's different kinds of medium in which you can have communication protocols. And so something that we do, you could go with a serial communications RS-232, RS-485. That's going to be a hardwired signal usually, either with a physical wires or with a RJ45 port configured for serial, or you can go with Ethernet, and that's going to carry most of your big communication as well. But so we also, those are all local area network kind of communication. We also do wireless connectivity with gateways and wireless routers and remote support and that kind of thing as well. So there's no limit to the capabilities when it comes to communications.
yeah, so if you want to remote monitor your systems from your backyard as you're grilling your steak, you can take a look at it and see what's going on with your system. If there's anything that's down, anything that's operating irregularly.
So in theory, you could have the warning flash up on your mobile if something was
Mhm.
happening. So when we talk about environmental installations, I normally think of some NEMA rated enclosure. What else should we think of as we ask for the environmental considerations for a panel?
Well, I think for starters, there's a little bit of a misnomer where NEMA is concerned. Um, so NEMA is kind of a standard, so like a NEMA 4X, a NEMA 12, and that's what most people, at least here in the United States, refer to when they talk about environmental protection. But there's also, there's NEMA, but UL, which is which we make our panels to, UL 508A, defines it actually as type, which follows the NEMA standard closely, but we do have to make sure that all of our components are actually rated for the type per UL. But there's also the IP standard, which is pretty common in Europe and European Union countries. And so we make to UL 508A. We also have the ability to make to an IP as well. But we typically, if customer asks for an IP, we'll usually just convert to the equivalent UL type rating or NEMA standard. But when it comes to the actual environments, there's really several questions you really need to ask. The first is, where's the panel going? Is it indoor? Is it outdoor? Obviously, those are the big ones, but it's more than just that, because is it outdoor under a shed, or is it outdoor literally open to the sky and the sunlight? Because those are two totally different scenarios when you're designing a panel. If it's under a shed, I don't necessarily need to, although sometimes you still operate on the side of caution, but you don't necessarily have to worry about drip hoods and sunshade protectors over some of your controls. Whereas if it's out direct sunlight, and getting rained on all the time, that's something you would want to strongly consider. But so you've got that, but you've also got the temperature to account for. So if it's outdoors and it's going to be in the middle of summer, there's like a 99% chance that your panel is going to require an AC unit for us to maintain a UL standard on that. So 104 degrees Fahrenheit is the max temperature that we can make a panel in. And that's not the outdoor temperature, that's the inside temperature with all of the power the components are generating inside that panel. And so it's important for us as the UL representatives here at Farnam to make sure that we design these panels to take the temperature of your application. And so that's why it's really critical that we get a good insight on where they're going. And so the other thing that I should say also is so obviously rain and indoor outdoor is important, but also what else is around the panel? So is it near any kind of gases that could be explosive? That's the kind of thing we need to know, because it'll change what UL standard the panel needs to be built to. Or is it going to be around a bunch of acids that may require us to use a type 4X, which would basically be the panel would be all stainless. In addition to being waterproof, everything would be stainless and corrosive protected. So there's a lot of considerations that go into environmental, and it's something people don't always put as much thought into when it comes to control panels.
Well, depending if your
Yeah.
facility is climate controlled or not, your facility could be 90 degrees in the summer, and inside the panel you could
Correct.
still need AC. Exactly.
And
Sean?
it depends on what the amperage rating of the panel is too. I mean, a 20 amp panel sitting over there in a corner might never be a problem, but once you start going to higher amperage, all these components, they start dissipating more and more heat, and the heat has to go somewhere. So
Yeah. Yeah, so for every hazardous location, as you were just kind of talking about, spray booths and things like that can come into play on some of this as well. So if we know the classification and division of the hazardous location that the panel will be installed in, that helps us look at different directions that we need to go for the enclosures and whatnot. So,
And I think to consider, are you going to have a user that has to interface with it? How do you want that user to interface? Or how do you not want that user to interface with the panel? Both of those are considerations. You might not want an operator being able to make adjustments, and there are different ways to lock out both physically and electronically. So we've talked about environmental constraints. I'm just looking at a list over here. We talked about in applications, what we can control, what we can't control, which is also important. Environmental considerations. We've talked about the operator interfacing. How do we want them to be able to interface? We can support any of that. We can also lock it out. We talked about that we will design the panel for you. We just need to know what you want it to do. Is there anything else we want to add from an electrical or a safety standpoint? We put an an emergency stop on pretty much any panel we sell, which I think is incredibly important. When in doubt, hey, push the button. We want everyone to be safe. Is there anything else from a safety standpoint you guys like to mention?
Yeah, so a couple things actually. So as Sean talked about, we're design house here. We do the engineering. We are your engineering support for these control panels. And that's our biggest selling point with control panels is we design it so that you don't have to. It's not to say that you can't. Obviously, most people can design panels. They're not that complicated, but the big thing is it takes time and resources, and that's something that we're prepared to offer you, and that's probably the biggest service we provide with building control panels. But to further piggyback off of that, so in addition to designing the panel, we also offer PLC programming services. We program with HMIs, that's human machine interfaces, um, variable frequency drives. So we'll do programming for your application. We just require, that you provide us the application basically. You bring your problem to us and we solve it. So I think
Absolutely.
that's
We're happy
important to mention that.
NDA also. So if they want us to sign a mutual NDA to understand more, we're more than happy to review that.
We want to be your
And
solution provider.
correct.
We're doing it with the, we can put the blower in the control panel for you if you want. We have a phenomenal blower partner that we work with on a regular basis to help integrate that. So it's one less thing that the customer has to do. So
And
from a
it's in blowers for sure. We also, I mean, we can get into, drives, just motors in general for other control, linear actuators. We mentioned some of those. And really, when it comes to automation, we really don't have a lot of limitations. The biggest limitation is just the customer and the application. Like I said, we design to the application, so that is our limiting factor. But to piggyback a little bit off of safety, as AJ said, we do provide emergency stops on pretty much all of our panels. Really, unless we're specifically requested not to, we pretty much opt on the side of caution to put emergency stops. But um, we have external disconnect handles on our panels to make it easy to turn them off in the case of emergency. We always have the appropriate circuit protection for the application installed in our panels. We also can get into things like intrinsically safe barriers and um, safety rated emergency components for PLCs and things like that. In addition to, I think I mentioned stack lights and alarms and sirens. We can really anything from a safety standpoint we can build as well. So
as we start talking about our process, there's multiple ways you guys can give us information. Whether it's if you want to send an email, if you want to fill out our web form, we can schedule a call. We gather the information. We want to understand your application. We'll definitely have some back and forth at that point, and then will come a quote with a description. After the PO is placed is when we will start providing the schematics and such to the customer. This is a YouTube video. I don't want to talk about lead time on it because with electronic components, you don't know. We keep stock and we work hard to keep our lead times as low as possible. We've been known to work some miracles and turn some panels incredibly quickly. Again, as you're watching this, our lead time is something different than it would be right now, and we might not have the expedite time available. We might. As we're kind of wrapping it up, is there anything else that Sean or Logan, you guys like to mention?
I think Sean mentioned it briefly, but I think it's important to note that we we pretty much work with everyone in terms of controls. We pretty much hit all the major players. So Allen Bradley, Siemens, Schneider Electric, WEG, ABB, you name it, Eurotherm. We work with all of these components, and so there's not much limitation on what we can get and put in a panel for you. So.
Perfect. Well, at this point, waiting for you guys to call us. If you have any further questions, please reach out. There's a link at the bottom of the screen right now to take you to our website to learn more. And as always, thank you for watching.